Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Sovereign Society podcast. I'm really excited to be sharing with you this episode because this is like one of those being at the right place at the right time kind of connections. So I met Erin here when I was at a coffee shop working, and we were in Joshua Tree. She was in town. We're going to talk about her new book, and she was in America to create. She was in America to really do photos for her book, and she and her husband stopped in Joshua Tree to kind of reset, and we just instantly vibed and hit it off. And Bud's best friend from Australia.
So
So
sweet.
yeah, so thank you so much for being here, and I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you because something about me that I've been really passionate about too is more than just, having true conversations about plant medicines beyond psychedelics. Like there's more to plant medicines than just psychedelics. There's also herbalism, and we're seeing the uproar of essential oils and all these things. But more so than that, what's really calling me lately too is if we have these platforms and these privileges, we need to really step up. If we're here to be quote unquote conscious leaders, use that level of consciousness to have conversations and to have discussions about sustainability and to have these conversations about the real situation we're navigating through right now. It's more than just the likes on social media and the approval of others and whatever. There's a deeper calling that each of us are here to really show up and step up, and the things that we're most passionate about, that's what's going to really allow the conversation to show up and the opportunity for us to really share our purpose. So I would love for you to talk about, especially it's really awesome because we're in both hemispheres. And so when I interview people from other hemispheres or other countries, I feel like the medicine is being shared. We're bringing in this medicine and this communication and these frequencies to different parts of the world that can really help shower the world with the intention and the medicine we have here. So I would just love to hear your story as to creating your book. We're going to dive into all that, but really why now was the time for you to really show up and step up and educate.
Right. That's huge. Thank you so much for it. I'm just so happy to be here with you. And hello to all of our communities listening. I feel like it was such a kismet thing meeting you as well. It was so lovely. And when you were sitting next to me, I just knew instantly you did healing work as well. It was, really uncanny. And then we started talking and you were like, and I do this. And I was like, wow, I just knew it. So it's really awesome to be full circle here with you.
Yeah.
Where do I begin? I feel like for me, I've been doing this work really pretty deep in it since I was 16 and I'm 37 now. So, it's like a 21-year journey of being able to sit here and be here with you and be the person that I can be now to share and be seen and be heard. For me, it started with energetic healing. So I really dove right into more like etheric healing and did a really dedicated, intense sort of 2 years of study in a college, like quite an uncanny situation when you're 18, to go and learn about crystal healing and auric healing and kinesiology and flower essences and, chakras and meridians. And so it's a funny way of how I became a herbalist because it's kind of back to front in a way, but all in its perfect place. So it was like I started more with the energetics and I landed more in my body and into the physical as I have journeyed, on. So yeah, where do I begin? So yeah, I started there, and now to be a herbalist and nutritionist, I have studied for years in Australia because the training is so hectic over here. It's really different than America. So we do a 4-year degree to be a herbalist, and it's very clinical.
It's really integrative. It's not just a weekend certification.
No, it's it's very almost similar to like what a naturopathic doctor does in America, but obviously we don't do the surgery and the medicine part. But it's a lot of science, and it's a lot of like pharmacology, chemistry, plant constituents, like really learning very sort of clinical and techy, which is amazing and not amazing. So I think again, it's about you making it what you want. But I've really gone on a long journey, to be able to be this person to share and teach. And I'm so honored to now be here doing that, and to have been given the platform. Like you said, you're so right. Like we are so blessed to be able to share and reach people and inspire people. But I really take that so super seriously, to stand in the role as a teacher and a mentor and a guide. And I really do my best to come from a very, very centered, true place in the way that I can share and show up. Yeah.
I do feel like that's part of the real integration of what it means to be a spiritual teacher, because it's more than just a number or a blue check mark on Instagram. It's how are you embodying the medicine? How are you sharing and really walking the talk and really educating in a way? I feel like if we want to implement real change in the world, I don't know how it is in Australia, but here in the States, we're so conditioned or manipulated, I think would be a more better phrase, a word, by the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
No, they're infiltrating our elections, they're infiltrating our healthcare system, they're infiltrating politics, and really in a way of, and then cannabis becomes legal here in some states, and now they're like, oh, we want to jump on this wagon too because it's what makes money. It's such a profit driven consciousness, and that's what I'm seeing a lot in spiritual community too, is that it's so profit driven, but it's some people are losing the medicine of why you're actually doing this work. It's not for profit, it's because of answering the call and really doing the deep desire. And so I'm seeing this parallel reality of like the spiritual community and how it's so profit driven. And then I'm seeing it in my political system in America here, of it being so profit driven. And so if I want to implement that change on the political level, I have to also start implementing that change in my community by, calling it out and speaking truth to it and helping people remember to go back to the essence. And so I feel like you being an herbalist is like literally coming in at the perfect time, because I do believe that it was the plant medicine was so driven and so strong in the past. And I think the reemergence right now is because the plants are speaking to us to be like, hey, like it's more than just 5D and above living. Like you're here on this 3D reality with us, like come answer the call.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So true. I mean, I felt that so deeply, and I feel like so many people reflect that to me. Right now, it's just like such a ripe time of people being called to the plant path. And I do believe that there's a lot of reasons for that. But I believe that we all need to slow down, ground back into our bodies, and connect to nature, and connect to Mother Earth. And I feel like the plants are just, they're the messengers, they teach us that so beautifully by just being their authentic selves. And I feel like that is the deepest invitation right now as to why I think people are being drawn to work with the plants, is that we're so like fried and frazzled from the constantness of everything, and technology and consuming and producing, and it's being outside of ourselves a lot of the time. So, returning to nature and simplicity by just stepping onto the earth and paying attention to a plant, a tree, a flower, whatever it might be that calls your name. But it's just, you're in presence and you're instantly back in your body and you're back in belonging. And I think a lot of the time, what's happening right now, we feel foreign from anything, even that's even, and we can go into the rabbit hole of ancestral stuff, but it's like, we've just moved around so much. We've shape-shifted. Our bloodlines are changing. Where our ancestors may have been from, we're no longer there. We've immigrated to different lands, like all of the different things. So I think it's really obvious and inherent that a lot of us don't feel a deep sense of belonging as well. Like community is fractured. Look, some communities are incredible, but most of the time our communities are kind of fractured, right? So, you know,
What do you see by that when you're saying fractured community? What does that represent
well,
to you?
I think I think it's so personal to everyone what that means. But in my experience, my deep sense of belonging hasn't been, there's been so many, actually, I have to say, like, there's so many rare moments in my life where I can say I felt a deep sense of belonging somewhere, you know, really, truly. And obviously, I mean, I feel a deep sense of belonging with my husband and many of my beautiful friends and my parents. But in terms of feeling very connected in a community where I may have chosen to live, I've rarely ever felt that. I felt like a really deep sense of being kind of an outsider. And it's, that to me feels, it's fracturing for you, right? Like it's a feeling of like, where's your sense of belonging? Where's your sense of home? And I think that's got to do with a lot of different elements personally for me. I think it's also the level that I operate on and the way I want to be seen and heard and understood and received. There's been places I've that I just haven't felt like I've been able to access that sense of community. But on a larger scale, there's just so much division still happening in communities. And I mean, even if you talk about like something as simple and as beautiful as meditation, so we're talking about spirituality and meditation, there's all of this division in like how you practice meditation and which is the better way to do it. And do you know what I'm saying by that? It's like all those communities like are fractured. There's not a whole lot of togetherness. And, you know, so even in my experience of community, I don't think I've experienced a bunch of togetherness. I think that's coming in now at this phase of my life with where I live and the beautiful people around me. And I feel in deep alignment with the Byron Bay hinterland where I'm at, which is so healing for me because I really hadn't felt that a lot in the past. So yeah, I do feel that that's super important for people to feel a sense of being seen and heard and um, embraced, is to
Hmm.
feel a sense of belonging in a community, but a lot of people don't.
And we have to find that first within ourselves too, to be able to
Sure.
attract the people that actually see us.
Right.
How are we gonna feel seen if we don't see
Right.
ourselves first? I know for me,
100%.
that's been a
Yeah.
huge part of my journey, even navigating through, like you said, I mean, here being in
Mm.
California, I'm seeing the fractioned
Right.
community of in the
Right.
spiritual movement. You know, there's
Right.
people who are spiritual teachers for the fame, and then there's people who don't care about that just want it devoted to the work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many of those pieces of like the false light, people that are like blind leading the blind. And then there's people that
Right.
are like, no, I don't need that glitz and glam. Like, I just need to be like in like my pack of 12, like the 12 disciples, and just be in that
Right.
smaller, and the remembrance of us being spiritual beings with this,
Mm.
having this, navigating through this human experience. And I think for me, being called back to Joshua Tree and coming back home during my Saturn return has been about me connecting with my plants around me that I grew up around, and to just be in a space where there isn't a lot of outside noise of that
Mhm.
technology, of the city life, of, you
Right.
know, the trying to keep up. And it's just more so about an opportunity for me to fill my cup and to come into that wholeness, and to
Mm.
connect with my plants and the local and the nature that surrounds me, to fill up my
Yeah.
cup, so that I
Right.
know who I am. And now I'm blessed of my soul squad of like people
Yeah.
who see me, people who understand, and people who are seeing what I'm seeing
Mm.
happening, not just in the spiritual community, but in the planet as a
But
whole.
collectively.
Yeah,
Right.
about
Yeah.
sustainability. And, you
Yeah.
know, are people
Yeah.
actually taking action? Are people actually walking the talk?
Right.
Or are they just
So,
really good at
yeah.
marketing?
Right. I mean, it's such a deep conversation, especially like I feel like it's a real thing that's happening right now, and like spirituality, consciousness, and, you know, wellness, you know, that word, that little buzzword. But I do, you know, I want to just back up really quickly to what you just said about, you know, first being able to like to find your community, to see that in yourself and heal that within yourself. Because I do actually, like, that's exactly, like, you nailed it for me. That's exactly what it was. Like, I did really feel like I was playing small in a lot of ways, and, you know, not able to allow myself to really embody myself. If you know, if
Totally.
that makes sense. And it's like,
Dimming our
as soon
light,
as,
dimming our
right,
light.
dimming the light, playing small in different relationships, different dynamics. And I was like, something, you know, big, like aha moment. I mean, I got really ill, so that always gives you a good aha moment, but it's like, it just cracked me open. And within a few weeks, we changed everything. We moved, we like, I shifted everything to digital. I left my clinics. Like, I just completely transformed everything and was like, that's it. I want to be seen. I'm ready. You know, the book came in, it was like boom, 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 so big. And a big transformation happened. And I was able to allow myself to feel at home in a community and to feel seen. So I wanted to go back to that because it was so important what you said, because I don't want to be polarizing. You know, I don't want people to be like, what does she mean? I really feel like it came straight back to me. It was really nothing. It had nothing to do with anybody else. Everyone else was in their perfect place, but I wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. And sustainability, and in your community, that the next piece that you went to, 100%, I feel like it is a really deep, it's becoming a deeper, bigger passion of mine. So I know that I'm going to be teaching and talking about this a whole lot more, you know, and now loud and still really digesting and aligning what that means and how I can go about sharing it. But if you can also understand, like from my training, where I came from, it's so kind of clinical and so, I mean, so amazing, right? It's like all evidence-based, and there's, you know, there is traditional medicine in it, but it is very much like up with the trends, like of how we're using plant medicine and the constituents and how it's affecting our body. And it's like so wonderful to know those things. But there really was no, like zero, like I remember zero zilch information about sustainability or really deep training about culturally where the plants came from. So Western herbal medicine, you know, to summarize, is really traditionally from like European lands, like European traditional medicine and folk medicine, and North American medicine. So a lot of like folk medicine and Native American traditional medicine. So it's kind of Western, you know, herbalism is like this melting pot of different cultures. And also Ayurveda comes into it, and TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, comes into it more recently. So it's an interesting melting pot of kind of cross cultures, cross continental plants in different lands. And when I was trained, there was just really no discussion around sustainability or like where the plant's being sourced from. And I believe even to this day, they're not, you know, really being trained that way in Australia. And so for me, as I've kind of been able to integrate more of my personal connection to the land and personal connection to the plants, a big piece of sustainability and understanding that it's very, very powerful to practice bioregional herbalism. So plants that grow within your environment, and to align yourself energetically with the land that you're on. That's created like a whole nother piece of like the story for me as well, around retraining how I approach plant medicine and how I'm going to continue to share and teach.
Yeah, because for me, my house is called the Creosote Casita out here in Joshua Tree, because I've got all these creosote bushes in my backyard. Right. And so creosote is what brings the desert rain smell. And it's also the plant medicine that connects us with the ancestors. And so I know for me, living on this land, it's always been my favorite wildflower. I've been studying wildflowers, like California-based wildflowers, since I was 14. It was a project I had to do in like my biology class in high school.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so the creosote has always been my favorite. And it's so connected to the ancestors. This was what brought me back to the desert from San Diego, is I needed to help heal my grandmother, like hold space for my grandmother for her transition, and going through the Saturn return, and to just heal so much of my inner child, to connect to my lineage, to really step up and show up. Right. And so when you're saying, you know, to really become aware of the plants that surround you and to really get to know them better and their properties and the medicine that it carries, there's no accident as to why you are in that space.
Right.
It's part of the healing journey that's going to help you come back into that wholeness, to step into the next space and the next part of your soul's journey, as to why you're here.
Right. 100%. I mean, I feel like the land has so many messages, the land that you're on and the land that you choose to be on. And one of the greatest messages is the plants. So paying attention to them and getting to know them and getting to know their sort of energetic and physical properties can be such a powerful like aha moment, because often you'll be like, you just really, like a lot of people reflect this to me, like there's this one plant they'll see all of the time, they'll be like, what is this? And or do you know much about this? And we'll chat about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, that is so insanely relevant to what I'm going through right now. There's no there's no coincidence in that. It's the message that's moving through the plant to you. There's a reciprocity, an offering of healing, and in turn you can offer healing back to that plant as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's a
for me,
co-creative experience.
right, it's a collaborative co-creative experience, and that's exactly what herbalism is and should be. Right. So it's it's like, and that's why I named the book Plants for the People. But the mantra in the book, when you get to read it and open it up, is plants for the people, people for the plants. So it's really about this reciprocity, this relationship of like, there's no separation between, we're all one, and we can in taking we give back. It's got to be a reciprocal relationship. And I really want people to start thinking and feeling into them in that way, and plant medicine, that it isn't just about, like, even if you're going to buy something off a shelf that's in a package, in a pill, like in a capsule form, it's a plant. I really want people to still create reverence and connection with that plant. Like, I understand you can't always grow and cultivate and connect with the earth at all times to work with the plant you want. So there are ways that you can do it in our modern day. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really just giving reverence and connection and thanking. And, it's like, it's the intention and the energy that creates reciprocity.
Amen to that. And I
Yeah.
think it's part of, it's like the plants are yelling at us in this way too. And, being in California as I record this, like there's been so many wildfires right now in
Yeah.
California. And so all of these native plants of California are burning. And I feel like it's part of the regeneration of the awakening to allow the air to be carrying the smoke of the medicine in a way too, to touch the lives, to really answer the call and wake up, because we're seen as such a progressive space that and if we have these platforms and there is strong medicine, like California is a portal without a
Right.
doubt.
100%. Yes.
And so
Yeah.
this is part of our duty and our responsibility as a Californian to really answer that call and to really show up and speak up on behalf of nature.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. It's it's a really beautiful way to think about the flowers, burning in that way and carrying the smoke. I think I really never thought of it that way. That's
It
beautiful.
just came through right now, just really seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I feel like where I live too is a portal. I understand. I feel like we're very, very drawn to California. We spend so much time over there, and have been so close to moving so many times, but it's not yet. And right now we're here, and I feel there's a real kinship to the Byron Bay hinterland with some of the land in California. I really understand the energetic similarities, and the type of people that it also brings. It's really interesting. I feel you. There's a lot of fires around here right now as well, and it's very. It's very dry. So there's a lot of easy fires being started, but we always think about devastation with fires, because of course that so many people lose so much and lose their homes and the animals, and it is devastating. But it's also trusting that the land has a greater plan, and I think it's really hard to trust that when we feel like we're losing things,
Mm-hmm.
but trusting that the land has a greater plan. And, that's also the cycle of nature,
Mm-hmm.
and giving reverence to that, and
Mm-hmm.
trusting that it's bigger than us,
Yeah, in Kundalini Yoga, there's a mantra called Satanama, which you chant, and it's infinity, life, death, and rebirth. And
Mm.
that is the cycle of this experience.
Right.
There's always parts of us that are dying. There's parts of us that are
Right.
rebirthing.
Mm.
And this is part of what life is. We are infinite
Yeah.
beings. And
Right.
through that, we also have, again, the responsibility to tap into our energy, tap into our purpose, and to understand that, you know, we have to speak up on behalf of the plants as well. So
Definitely.
I would love to hear what was, you know, I heard you say, like, when you started coming back into yourself, that was the time for you till the book came through. What
Yeah.
is it? What's the antithesis of the book and the medicine that your
Mm.
intention is to with the book?
Yeah. Yeah. What was it? I always wanted to write a book. I mean, I've always wanted to write books, and it was such a kooky experience because I was sort of meaning to put together a book proposal and had just been really full over the years with my clinic and clients, and kind of when everything started falling apart for me and I hit like a really deep kind of adrenal fatigue and exhaustion,
Mm-hmm.
I got approached by a publisher. Like, it was in that moment when everything was at its worst, you know, where I actually had to shut everything down and get really clear on what I wanted.
The darkest
Um,
before the
oh
dawn.
my God, it was like, it was like really one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And just not knowing if I was going to get better, because it was so scary to not be able to control my stress response in my
Mhm.
body, and just having panic attacks and cortisol rushes. But my mind was completely clear. So it wasn't coming from an anxious place. It was like really physiological. You know, it was so crazy. I burnt my body out so much I couldn't respond to stress in a normal way, you know? And so it came loud and clear, and I got approached by a publisher, and I just instantly, I love my publisher, and I've always loved what they've done. So it was so perfect for me. And I just said yes. In total chaos, I said yes, because I was like, I'm going to be able to do this. This is what I'm meant to do. I just need to heal and rest. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to create it. I'm going to get really clear. And I did. I mean, I transformed everything at that point in my life, and really got better pretty quickly. And that's something that I really want to start sharing with people, like how to recover and repair from
Mhm.
total burnout, because it is scary, so scary when you get there. And it's hard to get really great guidance. So that's another passion of mine. Um, and so the book came through loud and clear because I wanted to bridge the gaps where I felt that herbalism is not accessible for a bunch of people. I felt that right now, you know, a lot of the books that exist, the literature that exists, it's very much like 70s, 80s kind of old literature, like really beautiful, but like kind of old, like
Needs an
we use the
update.
right, like we use the word daggy in Australia, but like it needs an update, right? Like, need a bit of an update. And beautiful information, but it's hard to digest it in a modern way if you're a very kind of
I
aesthetic
think the plants have
person.
evolved too, in a
Right,
way too.
exactly. And then the
Mhm.
plants evolve, the information, different information's coming through. And so I wanted to take it from that space. And then on the flip side, the books that are available are like highly sciencey and kind of clinical. And I really wanted to bridge the gaps between having come from that world, a little bit more of the clinical training, but also the grassroots training that I've retrained myself with over the years and done so much more work. I wanted to deliver it in this way that the plants could speak through me and to me. I could bring my knowledge in a way that people could feel really inspired and really like accessible, like totally accessible, and also completely empowered to start their own relationship or deepen their own relationship with plant medicine, to bring it into their hearts, to bring it into their homes, to not feel the barriers of like, but I didn't study that, or I don't know what to do with that. And of course I understand there's complex cases, you need a practitioner, of course, yes, but there are also basics, and there's accessible ways that you can weave it into your everyday life that you probably don't even know that you are in little ways, because like many common plants are culinary, right? And they're so smart. They've come into our lives in this way that we just eat with them, and we don't even think about them like plant medicine, but they are, like turmeric and cinnamon, you know, and so all these different kind of spices, garlic, ginger, they're so smart. So I wanted to like really help people remember that they know these things, and that it's absolutely their birthright to work with plant medicine and to work with nature to heal in a super beautiful,
Mhm.
modern, accessible way that can speak to people now, you know, right now. Yeah.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I know for me, I started diving in deeper to plant medicine after I was struck by lightning because my nervous system was shot.
Right. Right.
And so I know for you, you have a deep passion about educating about the importance of us really having a strong nervous system if we really want to
Yes.
go forth. And
Yes.
how have plants helped you really activate and become more aware of that?
So much so, because, personally and also professionally, like as a clinician, I've really witnessed over the years, and truly nobody taught me this. This is something that I learnt from years of practice. I started to realize that if somebody comes in with a really complex, let's say digestive issue and sleep issues, or just a few really complicated things, there's no way that we can get to the roots to heal the gut and heal the insomnia if we don't work on the nervous system first. There's no way that we can get to the skin issues or the complicated hormonal imbalances unless we work on the nervous system to receive healing and to regulate the nervous system response. And so I learned that because it was really trial and error, like for years of working with people, seeing what works, seeing what resonates. And I realized it's like, unless you balance that, the body and the being can't seem to assimilate deeply.
Well, a huge
And it,
part of that too is the container, right? So if everything
right,
energy and the nervous system's already fried, that's what I've
right,
learned through my own experience. If the container's
mm,
not strong enough through the nervous system,
right,
you're gonna keep pushing away the energy
mm,
of the up level of the healing or whatever, because it's
right,
already on overload.
right, 100%. And I really believe that stress is like the root of all of our, health issues in a lot of ways. It's the root. And so if you're reactivating the stressor and your nervous system is responding in the same way, it's reactivating the pattern of the body, and the subconscious mind is driving that often. So it's so deep to go straight to the nervous system. And I often do it. Like it's pretty much my step one with people is, editing lifestyle elements, editing food that doesn't serve you because it's wigging out your body and your nervous system, editing caffeine, like really going in and editing these elements that are pushing the body and the being too far, and then supporting with plant medicine to regulate and kind of calm and soothe the nervous system to be able to receive a little deeper. And that's just, really working with a bunch of beautiful nervine herbs, which changes all of the time. But most people know them. It's like chamomile and lemon balm and lavender and oats and skullcap. These are traditional Western herbal medicines, but they're quite common as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know it's been a huge part of my healing, and just being able to, and I know that's been part of the last kind of part of the journey for me out here in Joshua Tree, because I do feel with the new year, there's going to be a lot of shifts in my life. And again, like I shared earlier, a huge part of that medicine has been about me going back to my motherland here from where I was
Right.
born, to fill up and strengthen my container to prepare myself for the opportunity and the experiences I'm about to go through and experience, and how I can
Yeah.
really share.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah. I so feel you.
I'm excited to see how I feel like this next decade is going to be like a plant medicine renaissance in all its forms.
Right. I think so too. Yeah. I feel so too. And I feel so honored to have been given the platform and the opportunity to become one of the younger teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 37, but really if you notice, a lot of the times in herbalism, they're all elders, a lot of older teachers. And that's incredible because they've walked their path and they're embodied, and it's like they are the masters.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also mastery in youth. There's also mastery in what I've got to say compared to a beautiful 75-year-old teacher.
Well, it's also, there's
Um,
not the jadedness in a way too.
right.
You're
Yeah.
seeing it with a fresher perspective in a way.
Right.
And
Right.
I feel like so much of our generation is we're learning from the elders, while we also are
Right.
connected
Mm,
to what's happening now as well, because we're
mm,
more intertwined in
right.
culture.
Right. Right. Like, and it's just a really different way to teach, and I feel that there are younger teachers kind of coming through. And it's really interesting. And I feel, and we've all got very different ways of approaching plants, like reading some of the newer teachers who are writing books and sharing. And it's like, how beautiful that we've all been given this platform to teach and inspire others to step up as well. And we come from different worlds, different countries, different places, different learnings, different lineages.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this beautiful collection of the way that the plants are speaking through and singing through us all. And I really do feel so like grateful and honored to do that, and really just proud, really proud to be able to, bring their messages through me and share. And I take it so super seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I do, because, I really know that it's like working with the greater forces and allowing them to work through me. And it's when I'm with people in consultation as well, it's like so much is such a deeply intuitive process of just listening and holding the space, and that the plants kind of like, it's like they gently come up into my vision, when they're needed as well. It's like they're just like, how do I say it? It's like the little song lines like move through me of which plants are resonating with the person when I'm feeling into the person. And
You've been so, it's not like a weekend certification. It's a
right,
practice that you've really devoted
cultivated,
your
right,
time and your energy to really understand that
right. Like I've been
you're a
practicing,
sacred vessel.
right, like I've practiced herbalism now so straight for 8 years in with clients, like a very very bustling practice for 8 years, which has been amazing. And in that time I've been able to cultivate my relationship with my garden, with growing, with learning how to be connected to the plants, not just in brown bottles, which is how we're kind of taught here in Australia, but to really sense and energetics, flower essences as well, and plant essences. So, knowing that the each plant has a beautiful physical application, but it also has a spirit application too. And what I love about flower essences and plant essences is how sustainable they are, because you're actually really not, you're using like a few flowers or a few parts of a plant to make thousands of essences. So it's not it's actually an ultimately incredibly sustainable way to work with plants and flowers, is to use essences which affect the body, mind, and spirit, but more that sort of emotional, spiritual, picture. And so I continue to keep learning, honey. It's just an evolution of how I can be of service and how I can be in my purpose
Mhm.
and be connected. And the plant, for me, it's like I choose the plants, like that's how I want to work. And even though I've got all of the energetics, and I am definitely a nutritionist, I talk a lot about food as medicine, which are plants as well, so a lot of plant like heavy medicine. But bridging it all together has been like where I found my kind of greatest gold of how I can understand, my role as a herbalist and a facilitator of healing, is to bridge all of those things together. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think I mean, I first started my coaching business, what have you, by
Mm,
also working a lot with plant medicines and making
mm,
sprays. And I would
mm,
I would spend hours and hours and hours to make these sprays, and I called
mm,
it shamanic dream, and just understanding the connection with the medicine that and the frequencies
mm.
that these plants
Right,
carry.
right.
And it's so funny because I just think so much about how culture, or like media in a way, they talk
Mm,
so much shit about our generation, but we're very in tune to the bigger picture of what's happening. And I feel
mm.
like we're really stepping up and answering the call to
Right,
be all inclusive, and not just on a race, gender, sexual orientation, but all inclusive with nature as
right.
well. Like where our generations and the generations below us are the ones
Mm,
that are really stepping up to take
mm,
action, are really the
mm.
ones that are educating and demanding political shift with nature.
Right. Yes,
You know,
totally.
and so it's
Yeah.
it's us that are really igniting um the renaissance. It's like I feel like it's a plant medicine renaissance that's going
Yeah.
to be happening, and
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
bring more awareness on the sustainability and the future of this
Mm,
planet.
mm. 100%. And even for me, I think a lot of that, being able to share like my process of moving through that, was trusting that, I like there is mastery in my practice, and I have embodied it. So like really 21 years working with energetics and then bringing the plants in, has been for me such an embodied process to trust that I've got to a place where at this like age and at this point of evolution for me, there is mastery in this, that I think often like we feel like we don't have enough to share, like we need to keep doing more and more and more. And then on the flip side of that, I feel like people often do like the tiniest course and then they're sharing and sharing and sharing and sharing. And I just sometimes feel like there's like, where's the sweet spot in between that? Because where's like the becoming, and I do feel like I'm not putting down anyone that's just done a course and is like, I want to share and I want to, that's great. But it's that feeling of like, we're not like embodiment, like we're just not taught to really walk the path in a way that I believe historically we were like trained, we were apprentices, we were like studying under elders. The medicine was in the experience of training. And I feel like a lot of times now we're just so void of that, like elders and knowledge and traditional knowledge and something being passed down and handed down to us. So where do we feel like it's okay to become our own masters and share? And that was that's been such an interesting journey for me around stepping up and being allowed to be seen, allowing myself to be seen and to teach in that way, because I feel like we often just doubt our own magic and our own medicine so much. And so
there's also a responsibility with that.
Right. There's a huge responsibility. Totally. And I think for, a little behind the scenes. And so, but when you've been called, like it's just so loud, you can't ignore it. And for me, a lot around working with plants now feels like such a deep purpose and a deep responsibility to share. And just to trust my own mastery. Like, this is where I'm at. This is what I've got to offer. This is in its perfect place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 85.
To master
Right.
is to teach.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is actually teaching, like, and embodying the process.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, for me, I have really only been able to teach things that I've truly been able to embody, and the vice versa, like the teaching and embodying the teaching. And I'm so proud to be able to do that now. And, for me, the book, I went down the route of like teaching 40 most common accessible plants. And a lot of them are wild weeds as well. So there's a sustainability angle there for me. And teaching the plants that most people kind of know of, so they could also feel like they could relate to the plants and access them. That was really important for me. And it's a journey through the stories and the history and the energetics of the plants. And I just want people to feel like they can trust themselves to start weaving them in their life in a different way now. They don't need permission to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. My mom always says that if anything were to happen, she'd be good, because she's always grown up with eating the weeds, like dandelion weeds and all of that. That she was
so
always
great.
like, she's like, I'm good, and that was something that my grandfather was so that's part of the ancestral lineage that I've really honored. Was just seeing how so much of our ancestors they were healing themselves naturally.
Yes. Yeah.
The pharmaceutical industry is so new compared to the centuries and millennia, that we've had of healing ourselves with plants.
Yeah. True. I mean, even if you think about a plant like dandelion, which is very much, a weed pretty much, like in so many countries, right? Now it's just traveled so far and wide, and it's everywhere in Australia, on everybody's lawns and on the edges of, pathways, and it's prolific here, right? And in America too, and in Europe. And so, dandelion, it would like spring up in spring, like it's a spring tonic, and it's so rich in, minerals and different vitamins. And so it's like traditionally thought of like a spring tonic. You eat the leaves, you can eat actually every part of it is edible, so you can eat the whole plant really, and it's like a spring tonic to like rejuvenate the system and awaken the system in spring, after the system's been a bit more sluggish and inward in winter and autumn. And so it's just really interesting, like each plant has such a story and a message of why it's there and why it's popping up in relation to how our ancestors approached it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with the nervous system, what would you say would be some of the really important herbs to work with to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
strengthen that in the history of, we're in this
Mm,
time of like massive like burnout from technology and all these things with the nervous
totally.
system and overstimulation and all that.
Yeah, I do really feel like, those most kind of well-known nervines like chamomile and lemon balm are just such gorgeous plants to work with. I feel like oats, like Avena sativa, milky oats or oat straw is such a beautiful, like grounding, calming force. Um, each plant has a different layer. So, if you've got a little bit more anxiety, like I would go more with chamomile, and I would go more then towards like passion flower and those like nervine sedative sort of herbs. But just as an everyday thing to work with, like even at a drop dose, like a small dose, sort of getting it in more energetically than a big therapeutic dose. Chamomile is such a beautiful, simple plant to work with. You could work with one, you could work with three. It's just very intuitive. But I do say to people, like a great place to start is to work with one plant at a time, just so you can like introduce them to your system and also start to feel how they feel for you and get to know them a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's skullcap, even valerian is a nervine, but a very more sedative, nervine when you're experiencing insomnia or a lot more anxiety. So yeah, chamomile, lemon balm, oats, I think are my top three, just like accessible plants to work with for the nervous system. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I definitely agree with you on, like we
Mm,
talked about before, the importance of the nervous system healing.
yeah.
And I just think with so much of the technology and the Wi-Fi and the radiation and all of that, these are the massive components to the pieces that we need to become more aware of to really show up, to really step into our power. Because there could be a lot of these
Mm,
corporate forces that don't want us to be in our power because they keep us as sheep. And,
right.
they want us to play small because then they can still control us. But this is part of the revolution of
Mm,
reclaiming our sovereignty.
true. It's so true. And you really have to, I really believe everybody needs to sort of be checking in on a regular basis and just asking themselves, like, what do they need to be vital? What do they need to be vital? And for me, a lot of that answer is like, I actually have to step away from technology a lot of the time and just take like big detox breaks where I'm actually not doing Instagram for a period. I'm away from my computer. I'm not answering emails. I'm away from Wi-Fi. Like, I really find I'm quite frazzled by a lot of technology if I'm on it a lot.
And
And
I'm
so,
sure you connecting with with plants more so too.
right,
You're even
like
more sensitive.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
so sensitive. Yeah. So, I do, and like I'll go, I've got to go for a big walk. I've got to sit in my garden. For me, the biggest way to connect is just to spend time in nature and just to sort of detox off the noise and the energy. But like, I just say to people, like, what do you need to thrive? Like, what do you need to be vital? And a lot of the time people are never even asked that question, they don't even think about it. And so it's like, in my role as a practitioner is to also help to remind people of the foundations that will help them thrive. And a lot of that is like drinking water, getting rest, eating a diet that's in alignment with your body and being. And then how can you weave in plant medicine that can help if that feels in alignment, like you're ready to receive? So yeah, I just think it's really important because I do agree with you that there's just all of these other forces that are surrounding us that are, they're not simple, they're not natural, and I know we're in the we're in the bubble of technology right now, connecting, which is amazing. I can be so grateful for it. There's so many things that are amazing about it, but there's so many things that aren't amazing about how fast we're all moving and what's surrounding us on an everyday basis. So how can we be living in alignment and digest it and like consume it, but yet still be standing in our power and using it to our advantage, right? Without feeling like toxic from it all.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's part of the balance of everything in moderation.
right.
So
Yeah,
if you are going to be working with technology, be intentional with it.
definitely.
Are
Be
you using it to
intentional.
escape, or are you using it to serve the highest good? I think that has a lot to do with the zoning out of the Instagram scrolling or
Right.
diving into the wormholes of whatever. I think
Right.
that's part of also cultivating a conscious business in a way in that space too, is just how can we go forth and really intentionally use this medicine, because it is, technology can also be a medicine in a way, because you can hear the word that you needed, or you can get that inspiration or that aha moment, from listening to a podcast or from
Definitely.
watching a story or whatever. So I think there also has to be the opportunity to have that reverence, and
Yes. But
also no.
Right. But it's just intentional. And I completely agree. Like, I'm so grateful for Instagram and the beautiful community that's so like supportive and positive and loving. Like, I feel like I have such a sweet community. And then for me to be able to have connected to people all around the world, I've met some of my very best friends on Instagram, like seriously, like meeting them in real life and just
Yeah, me
connecting in
too.
such a deep way. Yeah. And and for me, I've also been expanded by being able to witness other people's work and witness the way that other people walk in the world. It's super expansive. It's just when it comes down to how it's impacting your mental, emotional, and spiritual and physical health, you just need to be checking in with that, because I think like anything good, it can flip the other way as well if you're not intentional about it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to ask some questions about you,
Yeah.
just some quick lightning round questions of, what does sovereignty mean to you?
Sovereignty, what does it mean to me? I'm like, when you call that, I was like, I wonder why she called that, like why your podcast is that. So I've listened to a few episodes. For me, it's like, I feel like it's got a lot of about being in my own power, being in my own power and master. I really think about that word. Like, when I think about that word, it's like a very powerful energy comes through my body, and it's for me, it's about being in alignment with my highest self and being a master of my own process.
Which
Yeah.
is why I called it the sovereignty.
Yeah. Well, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, that makes so much sense. Yeah. Yeah.
By
Yeah.
having these real conversations that a lot of
Right.
people are afraid to talk about, but I think are so
Right.
necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say was the book that really shifted
Mm.
your reality and the way you see the world?
Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer. Have you read it?
Mm-mm.
Oh my goodness. Oh, such an epic book. Everybody needs to go out and buy it and read it. Oh, she's incredible. She's like a botanist, so she's a scientist, but she's also a Native American woman. I actually can't, I don't even want to try to pronounce her beautiful tribe. I'm not sure of how to pronounce it, but her origins and then her training, and she bridges them together. And the way that she talks about plants and land and learning from nature is just so beautiful and inspiring, and really inspired me to write more when I read that book. So yes, that's definitely my number one. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm.
Coming into 2020 in a new decade, what is your greatest intention about your medicine and your work and how you see it
Such a good
revolutionizing the
question.
world?
Yeah. We have a lot of big things planned for the next decade. I feel that for me, it's really about being in my truest essence, to be able to teach and share and write and really inspire others to trust their own process to heal with the plants as allies. And the many facets of what we're about to launch in the next year or two are about that, So it's really about helping people bring it into their heart, into their homes in a deeper way, where they feel capable and they feel in alignment. Um, I also have a really big passion about starting to educate more on the way that we can work with plants that are sustainable and in alignment with the movements of nature, because a lot of where herbalism is going right now is not sustainable, and we need to turn it around before we create more havoc, and we like pillage, sort of, it's a hectic word, but pillage the land, like really be mindful of who we're supporting and who we're getting
We're
behind.
colonizing plants in a way that,
Seriously.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just, you know, for me, it's, I really like, I really want to be conscious as a herbalist and a teacher and a writer to inspire people to inquire within and inquire locally. And just even when you're buying products, like where are the plants coming from, and how can we be more conscious of our choices as a consumer as well, because we are consuming plants.
Mm-hmm.
And how then can we change consumership to this take relationship into more give.
Conscious
And
consumerism is a
right,
huge thing. Yeah,
right.
definitely.
And I think it needs to be really considered in herbalism as well. So for me, that's where I'm going, and that's how I hope to inspire in all aspects of my offerings.
I love that. What
Yeah.
would you say to younger Erin?
Oh my God. Oh, younger Erin. Um, oh gosh, I really would just say to trust myself, like trust myself, you know, and allow myself to shine more, you know. Just don't make yourself small for anyone else. If they're uncomfortable with it, just shine brighter, truly, because it's
Yes.
been really big for me, like making myself, you know, just keeping it quiet to make other people feel comfortable over the years. And it's just, it's no longer happening. So to little Erin, I would just say, like, yeah, just trust
Not on
it.
my watch, damn
Not
it.
on my watch. Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have the links below for you for people to pre-order your book.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
And where else can we find more of you?
Well, we're just upgrading everything right now. So probably, hopefully by the time that this launches, I'll have my new site out. But on the site, which is just my name, erinlovellverinder.com, you can find all of my podcasts, all of my writings, you know, articles about me and contributions I've done. There's a bunch of information there. And then on Instagram, I'm constantly kind of sharing the new things that are happening out. The book launches, the book is for pre-sale in Australia, UK, New Zealand, and USA, which is really exciting right now. And it comes out. Australia is March 1st, UK is March 26th, and Americans have to wait a little bit longer. It's May 5th, 2020, but it's happening. And I'll be back over in the States doing some events and some book bits like mid sort of summer next year. So yeah, I'll
Awesome.
have all of that online. Yeah.
Woo, so exciting. If there's anything else that you feel like at the deepest core of your soul that you want to share with for you on behalf of the plants, whatever's coming up, what would
Mm.
you love that medicine to be?
Mm. For me, what's coming up is that we're what's stripped of us is our trust in our ability to bring forth healing and to bring forth healing for ourselves. And I feel like it's just sort of stripped and deprogrammed with pharmaceuticals and the way that our medical model is, and the lack of potentially the understanding of our parents of having been given that as well, or having remembered that. And so, not being raised in an environment where we understand that the earth has medicine for us and that we know our own medicine is such a displacing, dark place to be. You know, when you're not in a great place and you don't know what to do, it's such a scary place to be. So, for me, and I think for the plants, what's coming through is you really have all the skills to step forward and start to cultivate that relationship right now. Whoever you are right now, whatever version of you that you're growing into, it's perfect. And you absolutely can step into that relationship and start so small, and to trust your own process and to work with the plants to open that up a little bit for you. I believe that everybody has the innate ability to heal, and the plants believe that too. So that's definitely big medicine and
They want
messaging.
us to heal so that we can do the
Right.
work.
Right. You know, I mean, I just feel like it's like we're all moving in the same force, in the same way. So just knowing that there's no separation between you and nature, between you and plant medicine. The medicine is there if you can allow yourself to tap into it and to trust your own process a little bit more. Yeah.
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much
You're
for
so
bringing
welcome.
this cross world medicine. It's just so fun that we have the Northern and Southern
Yeah.
here that we get to share and speak truth on behalf of the plants, on behalf of nature and the planet as a whole. So
Yes. Thank you
very
so much for
excited.
having me. I so
Yeah, it's been
appreciate it.
so great. So go pre-order Erin's book. Again, I'm going to have all the links in the show notes below, and keep up with her. I'm really excited for you to come back to the States and
Thank
to
you.
explore and share and celebrate your book.
Thank you
And
so much.
yes, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And just remember that we're in this collaborative, collective relationship together, not just with our community, but with also with nature. And she's got our back. And so it's just our turn to just really connect with her on a deeper level so that we can really go forth and unleash our medicine and her medicine with the world. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be seeing you all soon. Take care.